Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Let's talk about falling in love. Have you been there? Have you experienced it? Think about what happens when you fall in love with someone. Most of us go through a very elaborate ritual. At first, we want to see the picture of the person. We read their bio. We get to know about the things they like to do, their views. Then we meet them and we try to assess if what we read about them matches the person in front of us. We feel their energy, how it feels to be in their presence, and so on. The same process applies to falling in love with God. Once you get past the gigantic obstacles that maybe there is no God, or maybe God is some old boring guy sitting in the clouds, or that he's a judgmental, angry, and jealous person. Or once you get past the impersonal, universal conception of God, that God is energy and cannot be a person, well, once you get past all of that, then we're ready to begin the process of opening our mind to a new possibility. We put aside all our biases and we begin with an open mind. What if God was extraordinarily beautiful, wise, powerful, creative, humorous, and talented? What if he was everything we have been seeking in a lover, a friend, and companion? Forget believing and start knowing, experiencing, and entering the magical world of divine love with God. A few days ago, well, no, not a few days ago, just yesterday actually, was Janmashtami. Janmashtami means the birth of Krishna. Now, on one hand, God is never born and God never dies. In fact, neither do we. We are never born and we never die. So therefore, the idea of birth is actually misleading. All of us are eternal beings, including God. And therefore, to say that we are born and that we die is actually a misnomer. It doesn't actually add up. We appear and disappear from this world. We appear in a particular body, and then we leave that body. And then we go somewhere else, and then we come back again in another body. Just as the sun never dies when it sets. When it sets, it goes somewhere else. And people there can now see the sun. And then when it comes back, it rises again. And now we see it. In much the same way, God appears and disappears from this world. We appear and disappear from this world. It's very interesting when you start entering into that idea that our birthday is actually our appearance day. And so it was the appearance day of Krishna yesterday, Janmashtami. And that's celebrated all over the world now in temples. And this is what it looks like. When you see Krishna on his birthday, he'll be wearing beautiful garlands, beautiful new outfits. This is the deity in the temple that you'll see. And along with Krishna, of course, is Radha, and it's her appearance day in a couple of weeks. This was in Atlanta, where I am right now. And sometimes you'll have plays being enacted, children acting out the pastimes of Krishna. And sometimes in places like Bombay, you'll see them climb up like this, forming a pyramid. And on top there, you'll see a pot right on top. And it's got, traditionally would have had butter in it. And that's what Krishna and his friends would do. They would climb up to steal the butter in the neighborhood. But here it's probably filled with money and all kinds of things for these kids, because they're not going to appreciate butter. So right? So That's Janamashtami. Now, the Vedas, the Svetashvatra Upanishad 6.8 says, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is almighty, omnipotent. He has multifarious energy, and therefore he is able to remain in his own abode and without endeavor supervise and manipulate the entire cosmic manifestation. He does not micromanage the affairs of the universe. All responsibilities are delegated to various demigods. As such, the Supreme Being, Krishna, does not need to do anything. Yet he comes to this world time and time again. So why does he come here? He doesn't need to. He tries to explain it to us. In Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijami aham. What does that mean? Whenever and wherever there is a decline in dharma, in religious practice, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Keep in mind, he's not referring to coming as a prophet. He's not coming as his son. He comes as himself. Now, there are other times where he does come as a prophet, and he does come as a messenger, and he does come as his son, but he also comes himself from time to time. And why would he do that? Well, he gives two reasons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Which means in order to deliver the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish dharma, or the principles of religion, or it's actually not quite religion, dharma is much bigger, and I've explained it in earlier times. He says, therefore I advent myself millennium after millennium. So one might ask, the asuras, the miscreants, the troublemakers, the evil people, they can be annihilated by nature. Nature could just have an earthquake, a storm, a tornado, a typhoon, or whatever else. Nature has so many ways of wiping out populations and people. And dharma can be established by pure devotees of God, as we were saying earlier, messengers of God, sons of God, lovers of God. They can they can teach the principles of dharma. So why would God personally need to come? There is more. Because although he has nothing to achieve in this world, and although there is no one equal to or greater than him, he comes to give happiness to the surrendered devotees. Okay, what does that mean? The next verse tells us a little bit more. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva teham punarjanma naeti mameti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode. So there's a lot in there. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities. Now, in the last few episodes, ever since I think we started from the pastimes of Krishna from episode number 77 in that list, you'll see it in the playlist. We're now somewhere around 98, so about 20 hours of going through the pastimes of Krishna. That is his lila, his pastimes, his activities. Today we're talking about his appearance. And he says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, so when we leave our body, we do not take birth again in this material world, but attain to his eternal abode. So his intention is to liberate us from the cycle of birth and death, to free us from suffering, and to bring us back home, back to Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, he promises this. Sarva dharma parityajamam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishamima shuchaha. He says, abandon all varieties of religion There's so many varieties of religion, right? He says, abandon all your religiousness, all your religiosity, all your religions, all of them, and surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions, all karmic reactions, all sin. Do not fear. This is his promise at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. So what is he promising? That he wants us to be with him, to enjoy with him, to experience unconditional, unmotivated, uninterrupted, pure, transcendental love, which is what all of us long for at the core of our being. Think about it. This is what we all look for. We want pure love, unconditional love, unmotivated love. We don't want to love someone who's got an agenda, wants to exploit us, use us, take advantage of us. Uninterrupted love, not love that is here today, gone tomorrow, could end any minute, and divorce might run off with somebody else. No, we don't want that. Someone who's going to betray us and someone who's going to abandon us. No, we want uninterrupted, pure, transcendental love. It's not found in this world. Or if it is, it's very, 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 very rare, especially now. That's the imprint that's at the core of our being, and it's in our being, and therefore we try to find it in this world, but not so easy. Most of us end up empty-handed and wishing we could find it somewhere. But the answer lies here with God. So to give pleasure to his devotees, Krishna appears in a human-like form. 2 hands, 2 legs. In the Brahma Samhita it is written, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiranjaganti ananda chinmaya sad ujjvala vigrahasya govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Okay, sounds like a lot of mambo jumbo to those who don't understand Sanskrit. I do understand, but the verses are so beautiful. They are worth reading and understanding. So he's saying here, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form, notice again the word transcendental, means it is not mundane, is full of bliss, truth, and substantiality. Okay, let me explain these words. We live in a physical body. God does not need to take a physical body. He comes in his original transcendental form. What is a transcendental form? It is made of 3 main ingredients. It is eternal, full of knowledge, fully conscious, and fully blissful. So in other words, the spiritual form, non-physical, not subject to birth, death, old age, or disease. So he's saying here, Govinda, Krishna, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental form possesses in itself the fully fledged or functions of all the organs. And I'll explain that in a moment. And eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universe is both spiritual and mundane. So what it's saying here is that each of his senses can perform the function of all his senses. He can hear with his eyes, he can see with his ears, but when he comes to this world, he acts as if he is one of us. Why? To win our heart, to attract us, to bring us closer to him, so that we may fall in love with him and love him the way he loves us. Now, there is an entire group of people who follow what is called Advaita, non-duality. They're impersonalists. They believe that God is only energy, there is no being, there is no person, that's just all made up. They follow Vedanta, and now it's become very popular in the West. They may not use the names such as Vedanta, they may not use Advaita, but they may be just talking non-duality. And this includes Buddhism, this includes many other schools of thought that have become popular in the West. They claim that God has no qualities and no form, that he is nameless, formless, non-dual, nothingness. Some of that is true. All forms, qualities, and attributes, they say, are a product of human creation. But here you're going to find the opposite, that the Supreme Being or God has the most incredible qualities, the most exquisite form. So how do we resolve these two very opposite ideas? How do we understand that there is any kind of synergy between this? Are they speaking the truth, or am I speaking the truth, or what's going on out here? It can be confusing. So the reality is this: it's not an either or equation. It's not either this or that. It is both at the same time. God, through his energy, is present everywhere, is everything. He is also present in everyone. And at the same time, he exists as a being. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings these aspects together through his philosophy of Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva, where he says we are simultaneously one with God and different from God. So, whereas the philosophers of Advaita would like to say, no, we are no different than God. We are just one with God. And we merge, we go back into God and merge like the drop of water merges back into the ocean. But if you look very closely, even when the drop of water merges into the ocean, the atomic particles do not merge. They still remain and are individuated. And we too are atomic particles of God, tiny, infinitesimal. We always remain separate, unique individuals. So here Srila Rupa Goswami, after consulting various scriptures, has enumerated the transcendental qualities of Bhagavan. We don't usually use the word God because it's been so abused in so many different ways. We prefer the word Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who possesses all the qualities you're going to hear about. 6 of them are considered primary. One who possesses all knowledge, means knows everything, possesses all wealth, owns everything in the creation. One who possesses all beauty, all fame, and all renunciation. So, as tiny infinitesimal parts of God, we may also possess some of these qualities in minute quantity. But when all of these are present in their full expression, and all of them simultaneously, that being is known as Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's get to know him a little bit. The first quality we'll come across is that he has beautiful bodily features. Any comparison of the different parts of the Supreme Lord's body to different material objects cannot factually be a complete comparison. Yet we are attempting to describe the indescribable. It is said that Krishna's face is as beautiful as the moon. His thighs are as powerful as the trunks of elephants. His arms are like 2 pillars. His palms are expanded like lotus flowers. His chest is like a doorway. His hips are dens, and the middle of his body is a terrace. It is only through poetry and poetic work like this that we can begin to try to understand those who have seen him, those who have experienced him, those who have fallen in love with him. Because the only way you'll ever see God or understand the beauty of God is when you fall in love with him. How will you fall in love with him? When you start hearing about him. And when you hear with an open mind, you'll realize that, wow, this is what I've been looking for. This is the kind of beauty, this is the kind of being, this is the kind of person that I've always dreamt of. And that being was God. All right, the second one is the person who possesses auspicious qualities. What is that? So generally when Krishna appears, he incarnates in a family of Kshatriyas or kings, as did Sri Ram, and sometimes in a family of Brahmins or priests. But Krishna appeared as the son of Nanda, a businessman in the Vaishya community, which is involved in trade, commerce, and the protection of cows. A friend of Krishna's father, his father's name is Nanda, King Nanda, he said, "My dear king of the cowherds, I can find 32 auspicious symptoms on the body of your son. This boy has reddish luster in 7 places: his eyes, the ends of his hands, the ends of his legs, his palate, his lips, his tongue, and his nails. A reddish luster in these 7 places is considered auspicious. 3 parts of his body are very broad: his waist, forehead, and chest. 3 parts of his body are short: his neck and thighs. 3 parts of his body are deep: his voice, intelligence, and navel. 5 parts of his body have are high. His nose, arms, ears, forehead, and thighs. 5 parts of the body have fineness: his skin, his hairs, on his head, and other parts of his body, his teeth, and his fingertips. The aggregate of all these bodily features is manifest only in the bodies of great personalities. The fate lines on the palm are also considered to be auspicious bodily symptoms. In this connection, an older gopi informed Nanda, she says, your son possesses various wonderful fate lines on his palms. There are signs of lotus flowers and wheels on his palms, and on the soles of his feet there are signs of a flag, a thunderbolt, a fish, a rod for controlling elephants, and a lotus flower. Please observe how auspicious these signs are. So various ways that people were noticing the qualities of Krishna. Now, beautiful bodily features which automatically attract the eyes are called ruchira, or pleasing. Krishna is full of ruchira, or pleasing qualities in his bodily features. The Bhagavatam says the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his pleasing dress appeared at the scene of the sacrificial arena when King Yudhishthira was performing the Rajasuya sacrifice. All the important personalities from different parts of the universe had been invited to that sacrificial arena, and all of them, upon beholding Krishna there, considered that the Creator had ended all of his craftsmanship in the creation of this particular form of Krishna. Now, they didn't know who Krishna is. Krishna had appeared as an ordinary being. He appeared like one of us to attract us. And gradually he revealed who he is. But when people saw him, they said, upon beholding him, they felt that God had reached the ultimate zenith of his craftsmanship in the creation of this being, Krishna. They didn't know that Krishna is himself God, and he has, yes, attained the zenith of his being in creating himself. It is said that the transcendental body of Krishna resembles the lotus flower in 8 parts, namely his face, his 2 eyes, his 2 hands, his navel, and his 2 feet. The gopis and the inhabitants of Vrindavan could hardly withdraw their eyes from such a vision. So when we experience God in the most pleasing of forms, we too will find it difficult and even impossible to get our eyes away from him. It's a beautiful song that says, can't get my eyes off of you. And so it is with Krishna. When the gopis would see him, they couldn't get their eyes off of him. And when they couldn't see him, they longed to see him again and again and again. There is like this insatiable desire. Then there's the effulgence pervading the universe that is considered to be the rays of the Supreme Godhead. Now, some people say those rays are just there. But the Vaishnavas, the devotees of Krishna, say, no, the rays of light that emanate in the universe come from Krishna. The supreme abode of Krishna is always throwing off effulgence known as the Brahma Jyoti. And that effulgence is emanating from his body. The luster of the hosts of jewels fixed on his chest can defeat even the luster of the sun. And still, when compared with the bodily luster of Krishna, the crest of jewels appears to be only as bright as one of the stars in the sky. Therefore, the transcendental influence of Krishna is so great that it can defeat anyone. Now, a person who has extraordinary bodily strength is called Baliyan in Sanskrit. When Krishna killed Aristasura, some of the gopis said, my dear friends, just see how Krishna has killed Aristasura. Although Aristasura was stronger than a mountain, Krishna plucked him up just like a piece of cotton and threw him away without any difficulty. There is another passage wherein it is said, O my dear devotees of Krishna, may the left hand of Krishna, which is lifted Govardhan hill like a ball, save you from all dangers. Then Krishna is ever youthful. Krishna is beautiful at the different ages, namely his childhood, his boyhood, his youth. But of all 3 of these, his youth is the reservoir of all pleasure, and he is full of all transcendental qualities when he is engaged in his pastimes. Therefore, devotees have accepted the beginning of his youth as the most attractive feature. At this age, Krishna is described as follows. The force of Krishna's youth was combined with his beautiful smile, which defeated even the beauty of the full moon. He was always nicely dressed and in beauty surpassing even Cupid, and he was always attracting the minds of the gopis, the cowherd girls, and who were thereby always feeling pleasure. So beauty is not everything, right? Beauty is skin deep. So there's got to be more to a person than just being beautiful. And now we come across the fact that Krishna is a wonderful linguist. You see, to fall in love with someone, it's so important to get to know them. And therefore, we're going over the qualities of Krishna. In fact, there are 64 qualities mentioned here. I'm only on the 7th one, and I don't think I'm going to be able to cover them all. But I hope that you will read this. This is all from the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami. You'll find it on Amazon as well. So Rupa Goswami says that a person who knows the languages of different countries, especially the Sanskrit language, which is spoken in this amongst the devas, the demigods, and one who also knows all the worldly languages, including those of animals, is called a wonderful linguist. An old woman in Vrindavan, present at the time of Krishna's pastimes, once stated in surprise, "How wonderful it is that Krishna, who owns the hearts of all the young girls of Braja, or Vrindavan, can nicely speak the language not only of his village of Braja with the gopis, but he can speak in Sanskrit with the devas, with the demigods. And then he speaks in the language of the animals. He can even speak with the cows and buffaloes, with the parrots and other birds, as well as in most common language." Krishna is so expressive. So clearly God knows all languages. In fact, if you pray to him in any language, it doesn't matter. He doesn't only go by a particular language. He doesn't just know English. He knows every language in the world and every language in the universe and every language of every creature, of every animal and bird and insect. He knows everything. The next quality is that he is truthful. A person whose word of honor is never broken is called truthful. Krishna once promised Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, that he would bring her 5 sons back from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. After the battle was finished, when all the Pandavas, 5, had come home, Kunti praised Krishna because his promise was so nicely fulfilled. She said, "Even the sunshine may one day become cool and the moonshine may one day become hot, but still your promise will not fail." That's important to understand when Krishna says, "I will give you liberation. I will free you from this world. I will free you from all sinful reactions and bring you back to me." It's important to remember that. Then Krishna is a pleasing talker. A person who can speak sweetly even with his enemy just to pacify him is called a pleasing talker. So there's a story of Kaliya, which you may have heard. Kaliya was was a big, gigantic snake with many, many heads, and he was residing within the waters of the Yamuna river, which was right there where Krishna's village was, and he was poisoning the river, and many of the cows and even now the cowherd boys were dying. As a result, the back portion of the back river had become poisoned. And when so Krishna, what he was doing when he was only 4 or 5 years old, he jumped into the water and punished Kaliya very severely. And then he asked him to go elsewhere. Krishna was such a pleasing talker that after defeating his enemy Kaliya in the water of the Yamuna, he said, "My dear king of the snakes, although I have given you so much pain," because he danced on Kaliya's heads, and Kaliya felt this 5-year-old boy dancing on his head. He experienced it as if a mountain was crushing him under its weight, because Krishna became that powerful, that heavy, that then Kaliya could do nothing. Kaliya became completely defeated. So then Krishna said to him, "I have given you so much pain, do not be dissatisfied with me. It is my duty to protect these cows, who are worshipped even by the devas, the demigods. Only in order to save them from the danger of your presence have I been obliged to banish you from this place." So very sweetly he instructed him to leave. And then think Kaliya was very afraid that Garuda, Vishnu's carrier, would come and kill him. He says, no, I will give instruction that you will be safe, that he will go and eat other snakes and fish, but not you. So he protected him, and in the process also protected his own people of his own village. Krishna is also very fluent. It is said a person who can speak meaningful words with all politeness and good qualities is called Vavaduka, or fluent. There is a nice statement in Srimad Bhagavatam regarding Krishna's speaking politely. When Krishna politely requested his father Nanda to stop the ritualistic offerings of sacrifice to the rain god Indra, a gopi remarked to her friends, Krishna was speaking to his father so politely and gently that it was as if he were pouring nectar into the ears of all present there. After hearing such sweet words from Krishna, who will not be attracted to him? Later on, Uddhav came to see the gopis of Vrindavan when Krishna was in Dwarka. And he said, the words of Krishna are so attractive that they can immediately change the heart of even his opponent. His words can immediately solve all the questions and problems of the world. Although he does not speak very long, each and every word from his mouth contains volumes of meaning. These speeches of Krishna are very pleasing to my heart. Krishna is also highly learned. A person conversant in different departments of knowledge is called educated, but when he acts on moral principles and is highly educated, he's called highly learned. You get the distinction. There's a lot of people who are very educated, but they may not be very adherent of moral principles, may not be holding on to high values. Just because you're educated doesn't mean much. But when you follow through with that, especially in the Vedic understanding, knowledge must be followed through on. An acharya is not just a teacher, he's someone who lives by example, who teaches by example. So such a person is called highly learned. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not require any education, but he gives a chance to Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to serve him. Being self-sufficient, Krishna did not require the service of any living entity. Although he has many devotees, it is because he is so kind and merciful that he gives everyone the opportunity to serve him as though he required our service. Regarding his moral principles, it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is ruling over Vrindavan as death personified to the thieves, and as pleasing bliss to the pious, and as the most beautiful Cupid to the young girls, and as the most munificent personality to the poor men. He is refreshing as the full moon to his friends, and to his opponents he is the annihilating fire generating from Shiva. Krishna is therefore the most perfect moralist in his reciprocal dealings with different kinds of persons. In the Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says that he deals with different kinds of persons according to their dealings with him. Krishna's dealings with devotees and with non-devotees, although different, are equally good. Because Krishna is all good, his dealings with everyone is always good. Even the asuras, the demons who came to kill him, he gave them liberation. That's one of his qualities as well. So Krishna is not only learned, but he's also highly intelligent. A person is called highly intelligent if he has sharp memory and fine discretion. As far as Krishna's memory is concerned, it is said that when he was studying in the school of Sandipandi Muni in Avantipura, he showed such a sharp memory that by once taking instruction from the teacher, he immediately became perfect in any subject. He went to school to show the people of the world that however great or ingenious one may be, one must go to higher authorities for general education. However great one may be, he must accept a teacher or guru as his spiritual master. So he's showing us through his example when he is a child that he also went. But the difference between him and us is that it might have taken us years to learn what he was learning. He learned it in the couple of months, and then he was done. He learned everything there was to learn from his guru, everything that was there in the Vedas, like thousands of books worth of information. A couple of months, and even that, just the time his guru had to really say it to him, it was already learned. All the different arts, from dancing to politics and how to govern a country, to Ayurveda, you name it, all of that. Did he already know it? Absolutely. He didn't need to learn it, but he was setting the example for us. Which brings us to the next point, that Krishna is a genius. Now, what does that mean here? A person is called a genius when he can refute any kind of opposing element with newer and newer arguments. So now we're going to take a fun example here. This is from the Padyavali, where there's a conversation between Krishna and Radha. One morning when Krishna came to Radha, Radha is the feminine aspect of Krishna. He is the masculine aspect of Radha. We did a whole video about that last time. So one morning when Krishna came to Radha, Radha asked him, "My dear Krishna, my dear Keshav, where is your Vasa?" This is V-A-S-A. The Sanskrit word Vasa has three meanings. One meaning is residence, one meaning is fragrance, and another meaning is dress. Actually, Radha was inquiring from Krishna, "Where is your dress?" But Krishna took the meaning as residence, and he replied to her, "My dear captivated one, at the present moment, my residence is in your beautiful eyes." To this Radha replied, "My dear cunning boy, I did not ask about your residence, I inquired about your dress." Krishna then took the meaning of Vasa as fragrance, and he said, "My dear fortunate one, I have just assumed this fragrance in order to be associated with your body." Radha again inquired from Krishna, "Where did you pass your night?" The exact Sanskrit word used in this connection was yamin yamushtitaha. Yamin yam means at night, and ushtitaha means pass. Krishna, however, divided the word into two separate words, namely yamina and mushitaha. By dividing this one word into two, it came out to mean that he was kidnapped by Yamini or night. Krishna therefore replied to Radha saying, "My dear Radha, is it possible that night can kidnap me?" In this way, he was answering all her questions, but so cunningly that he gladdened the hearts of all the gopis who were present. Krishna is also very artistic. So one who can talk and dress himself very artistically is called Vidagdha. Radha speaks of this exemplary characteristic in the personality of Sri Krishna. She says, "My dear friend, just see," she's telling her girlfriends, "My dear friend, just see how Krishna has nicely composed songs and how he dances and speaks funny words and plays on his flute, wearing such nice garlands. He has dressed himself in such an enchanting way, as though he had defeated all kinds of players at the chessboard. He lives wonderfully at the topmost height of artistic craftsmanship." Now, Krishna is also very clever. A person who can perform various types of work at once is called clever. So we've got many, many different skills. In this connection, one of the gopis said, "My dear friends, just see how the clever activities of Krishna. He has composed nice songs about the cowherd boys and is pleasing to the cows. By the movement of his eyes, he is pleasing the gopis, and at the same time, he is fighting with demons like Aristasura. In this way, he is sitting with different living entities in different ways and thoroughly enjoying the situation." Krishna is also expert. Any person who can quickly execute a very difficult task is called expert. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Chapter 59, text 17, Shukdev Goswami tells King Parikshit, Sri Krishna cut to pieces all the different weapons used by different fighters. In other words, they were throwing arrows and stuff like that at him, and he was just cutting them all. From this standpoint, it appears that Krishna was very expert in counteracting the enemy's arrows. But in a different example, similarly, at the Rasa Leela dance, which we also covered a couple of episodes ago, each and every gopi requested that Krishna individually become her partner. Krishna immediately expanded himself into so many Krishnas in order to be coupled with each and every gopi. The result was that each gopi found Krishna by her side. So he expanded himself to as many there were hundreds of gopis, and he became hundreds of Krishnas to be with each of them. That's his expertise, and that's something we cannot do. And the greatest of beings on this earth cannot do. Now, Krishna is very grateful. This is something that we don't hear of. We think, oh, I need to develop gratitude. But I want to tell you this, that before even you develop it, it is His quality. It comes from Him. It originates in Him. Any person who is conscious of his friend's beneficent activities and never forgets his service is called grateful. In the Mahabharata, Krishna says, when I was away from Draupadi, she cried with the words, "Hey Govinda," she was calling him. This call for me has put me in her debt, and that indebtedness is gradually increasing in my heart. This statement gives evidence of how one can please the Supreme Lord simply by addressing Him, "Hey Krishna, hey Govinda." So you see here, Krishna is protecting Draupadi. She was being stripped of her clothing in the court of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, and she was helpless. They were going to parade her naked, and they were going to turn her into a sex slave. But Krishna protected her. He stepped in at a distance and started sending her more and more and more clothing, so they could not disrobe her. They could not take off her clothes. In the same way, the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is also simply an address to Krishna and His energy. Hare refers to Radha. We also talked about this last episode. And Krishna is the Supreme Being. So she is His counterpart, the feminine aspect of Him. He is the masculine aspect of her, as we mentioned earlier. So this mantra is calling out to Him. And anyone who is constantly engaged in addressing the Lord and His energy can imagine how much Krishna is obliged to that person. It is impossible for the Lord to ever forget such a devotee. It is clearly stated in this verse that anyone who addresses Krishna immediately attracts His attention, and He always remains obliged to such a devotee. When you're calling His name, just like, if you're out somewhere, right? Somebody's calling out, "Hey, John, hey, hey, hey." They just say, "Hey." It doesn't mean they're calling you. But if they call you by your name, then you turn and you look, who's this person calling me? Right? So it's the same here. When you call God by His name, you don't just say God, 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 God. You don't say Lord, 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 Lord. That doesn't mean anything. Which Lord? I mean, there's lots of lords who are lords and ladies, and there's all kinds of people with all kinds of, titles. What are you talking about? That's why you have to be specific. That's why we use His name, Krishna. That's the name mentioned in the Vedas. That's the name that he comes with when He comes into this world. That's what is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. You are Bhagavan Himself. You are that Supreme Being Himself. And His name, Krishna, means the all-attractive one. So that name attracts Him, and the name attracts us. It cleanses our heart. It purifies our heart. And as our heart becomes purified of lust, anger, and greed, we become attracted to Him. As long as we have lust, anger, and greed, it's very hard for us to develop that devotion, that attraction. The next quality is that Krishna is very determined. Any person who observes regulative principles and fulfills his promises by practical activity is called determined. There is a promise by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita to the effect that his devotee will never be vanquished, will never perish. So a sincere devotee who is always engaged in Krishna's transcendental loving service should know for certain that Krishna will never break His promise. He will always protect His devotee in every circumstance. The promise of Krishna that His devotees are never vanquished had also previously been admitted by Indra when he was defeated. Krishna lifted Govardhan hill. You might remember this particular Leela, this particular story. When Krishna lifted the entire hill of Govardhan and protected the entire village of Vrindavan, had them all come and stand underneath the hill and protected them from the massive storms that were being sent by Indra, the god of rain and the god of thunder, lightning, and all of that. So it says here that when Krishna stopped the villagers of Vrindavan from worshipping Indra, Indra became very angry and therefore inundated Vrindavan with continuous rain. Krishna, however, protected all the citizens and animals of Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan hill, which served as an umbrella. After the incident was over, Indra himself appeared and surrendered to Krishna with many prayers, in which he admitted, "By lifting Govardhan hill and protecting the citizens of Vrindavan, you have kept your promise that your devotees are never to be vanquished." Krishna is also an expert judge of time and circumstances. Krishna was very expert in dealing with people according to circumstances, country, time, and paraphernalia. How he could take advantage, he could take advantage of a particular time, circumstance, and person is expressed by him while talking to Uddhav about his rasa dance with the gopis. He says, the most opportune time, he's telling Uddhav, when to go there. So he says the most opportune time is the full moon night in autumn, like tonight. The best place within the universe is Vrindavan. And the most beautiful girls are the gopis. So my dear friend Uddhav, I think I should now take advantage of these circumstances and engage myself in the rasa dance. Now, Krishna has also got many more qualities. He is a seer. I'm going to have to, I think, end here and just give you the rest of the qualities rather than going through them in detail. So I think I'll do that. Yeah, I think we'll have to do that here. He's a seer. He's pure. Wait, let me go into this. There are two kinds of purity. One type allows one to deliver a sinful person. So a very pure person can deliver one who is very sinful. Gurus are known to do that. Christ did that. Gurus have been doing this for thousands of years before Christ even, right? So a guru is able to deliver a sinful person. But the other type is when one does not do anything that is impure or sinful, such a person is also known as pure. But a person who possesses both these qualities, that is, that he can deliver all sinful conditioned souls and at the same time never does anything by which he can be contaminated, that person is supremely pure. That person is Krishna. He is both. In this connection, Vidur was trying to teach his elder brother Dhritarashtra from his familial attachments, and he said, "My dear brother, just fix your mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, who is worshipped with beautiful erudite verses by great sages and saintly persons. Krishna is the supreme deliverer among all deliverers." When you talk of salvation, that's what they mean by deliverance. He is the supreme deliverer amongst all deliverers. Not Amazon deliverer, okay? Delivering from sinful reactions, delivering from the cycle of birth and death. Undoubtedly, there are great devas and demigods, but their positions are as deliverers depends always upon the mercy of Krishna. Therefore, Vidur advised his elder brother Dhritarashtra to concentrate his mind and worship only Krishna. If one chants the holy name of Krishna, this holy name will rise within one's heart like the powerful sun and will immediately dissipate all the darkness of ignorance. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna is addressed by Arjuna as Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. He's the supreme pure. Thus there are many other instances exhibiting Krishna's supreme purity. Now, just to give you the rest of the list, as I said, there are 64 qualities. So Krishna is self-controlled, steadfast, forbearing, forgiving, grave, self-satisfied. He is equanimous or is in equilibrium. He's magnanimous, dharmic or follows the religious principles. He's heroic, compassionate, respectful, gentle, liberal, shy, protector of surrendered souls. He's happy, he's the well-wisher of everyone. He's controlled by love, all auspicious, all powerful, all famous, popular, partial to his own devotees, very attractive, all worshipable, all opulent, all honorable, the supreme controller. He is changeless and all cognizant. I think there's a few more. Let me just kind of make sure, because I think there were a few more that I didn't get time to put down. And I don't wish to do any yes. There are a few more. Right. So he is, the 53rd quality is that he's ever fresh. In fact, whenever you chant his name, you feel his presence, and at the same time you feel fulfilled from within. And so the devotees never become saturated, never become like, okay, I've done enough now, No, there's always more, there's always more, there's always another sweetness to it. There is a beautiful poem we'll talk about in a minute, Madhuram, I'll come to that. So then he's also got a form that is Sachitananda. It's eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. That bliss that we're looking for, that is him. He is Ananda, Mayobhyasa, the source of all Ananda, of all bliss. He possesses all mystic perfections. He has inconceivable potencies. Sometimes he is even discovering his own potencies and capabilities. And his body generates innumerable universes. He is the original source of all avatars or all incarnations that we read about in the Vedas. All of them come from him. Krishna gives salvations even to the enemies that he kills. He even gives them salvation. He is the attractor of liberated souls. So those who are truly liberated from this world, from desire and all of the attractions of the world, they become drawn to Krishna. And he's the performer of wonderful activities. He is surrounded by loving devotees. And he has a very, very attractive flute, which plays the most incredible sounds that pull on the heartstrings of everyone who hears them. Ultimately, Krishna has exquisite beauty. Krishna's form was the most wonderful when he appeared and exhibited on this planet and exhibited the potency of his internal energy. His wonderful, attractive form was present during his pastimes on the planet, and by his internal potency exhibited his opulence. So in other words, just so incredibly beautiful. In fact, it is said that the ornaments that were on his body became more beautiful by being worn by him. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts, your questions. What have you been thinking as you've heard of all this? Let's see what we've got. I have some wonderful comments here by Shira. And let's see what she's got to say. Christ is a collective, meaning all lords work for the Mother, Father, God. There is no competition. Though each ascended being has their individualized soul and past lives. Yes, and there's more. Each lord is a grape in the bunch of grapes. Thank you for your talk. All right. Thank you, Shira. And you must know that there are very specific qualities that Krishna is talking about, that he has, and that aren't possessed by the sons of God or the messengers of God. Please watch the rest of the video. Perhaps you came in the middle. Watch all of it and get a composite picture. Maybe listen to the pastimes of Krishna. Really study this subject and then give me your opinion, because I think it will be more useful if you've taken the time to really study for yourself. We're talking about the most ancient science of love of God. We're talking about something that predates Christianity by 3,000 years. And we're talking about something in which the declaration that is made is unlike any other. No other being has come onto this earth and claimed to be God and then proven it. Krishna proves it by his way of defeating all the demons that came to attack him. He proves it when Arjuna challenges him in the Bhagavad Gita and shows his universal form in which all planets, all of the universe is contained within his body. He proves it to his mother when she asks him to open his mouth, and she shows her all the planets and universes within his mouth. He proves it again and again, and then he declares in the Gita that Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, I am the origin of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise, knowing this, worship me with their heart. So it's a very deep science, and one should go and understand it and study it rather than trying to speculate or create theories before one has studied. Yeah, please give it an open reading. The Bhagavad Gita as it is available on Amazon. Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's the one you want to read. And you want to be able to see for yourself and make up your own mind. No one needs to believe anything. No one needs to accept anything. But it is helpful to learn about something properly and then comment. Thank you for participating. I'd really appreciate the fact that you're here. For all of you that are listening either live or later on, I honor you and thank you for being present here. It is a tremendous service, not easy to do, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. And if you have any further questions or comments, please write them down. As always, remember that we're here every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Pacific. 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays. And in India, if you're there listening, it'll be Wednesday instead, and that'll be at 7:30 these days a.m. So don't get confused by all that. I hope to see you again next week.